how does it feel to be in a relationship where you are celebrated for your healthy masculine and feminine, that you are able to tap in both energies and you don't feel like you're in a cage of your gender?
Well, it feels very liberating. And I tell women, if you say you have a self-pleasure practice and it has not changed your fucking life, this is not what I'm talking about. Like, it's not that. You're not even scratching the surface. I mean, like, you meet God through your pussy. That's what I'm talking about.
My orgasm are like wild and raw,
Yes.
and it's like, and I stop thinking about, do I look hot? Am I like, do I have
You're
the
so
perfect...
in the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's what, like, for guys is the performance. For women, it's like, what do we look like? What do we seem like?
And guys even too, because you can make some funny faces and,
How do you even start getting kinky? Because it might be overwhelming at the
just
beginning.
exploring.
And just taking it slow.
I'd be curious as to advice for couples to even approach that if they haven't got there.
Because it might be scary.
Oh,
right?
it's totally scary. It's so vulnerable.
Hi, my name is Aggie, and this is Biohacking Bestie. The one-stop shop for a modern queen, where you can find biohacking courses, self-growth courses, and where you can find the most incredible community of women so you can hit all of your biohacking goals and beyond. Hello, biohackers. Welcome to another episode of Biohacking Bestie. And this is if you have any idea what we're going to be talking about today with my today's guest, Peanut has kindly offered his toy to give you a little bit of a hint. Luci Lampe, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. I am still fascinated, so fascinated by the doggy rabbit.
The doggy rabbit, that's what we call it. Yes. I was like, people are so going to judge me for this toy, but whatever.
It's the best.
So Luci is a trauma-based sex and relationship coach. And today we are also joined by my now fiance, Jacob Friglin. So welcome.
Sounds good.
And Peanut and the doggy rabbit. This is going to be a very, very exciting conversation. I have tried to get Luci on my podcast for about, 4 months now?
Yeah, it's been a few months.
And you're a very busy person, mom of 4, a wife of 17 years. Very impressive. And I want to talk to you about everything from sex to relationships to mothering. And I thought it would be really good to have a male voice in that conversation. So it isn't just 2 women. So thank you for joining.
Of course. Excited to be here.
Excited to be here.
Conversation.
Yeah, this is going to be really good. So, where do we begin?
Oh my gosh. When we get the conversation started and then we start to go on these trails, it gets really juicy. So wherever you want to begin.
Well, I think maybe just start. I would love to just share with with everyone listening what resonated, what kind of content resonated with me when I saw you. And that was a really beautiful, profound, deep, multi-dimensional approach to relationships. So, there is this trend in spirituality that it's like, men have to be masculine and women have to be feminine. So, you see these coaches, text her 6 p.m. at my place. And she's going to be like, oh my God, yes, that's so hot. You're being so masculine. Let me spread my legs. This is so hot.
This is so true.
And you're like,
so right.
And I'm like, no, it doesn't work like this. I'm not turned on by this.
It doesn't work like this.
Right. I was going to say, you've probably experienced otherwise.
Yeah. And I'm like, and then I also feel like, there's something broken with me because I'm not this feminine woman. And I'm like, I feel feminine, but I also want to step into my healthy masculine. And you were the first person that I saw that was like, okay, what's the shadow of that? What is the dynamic? How to navigate that? How to step into healthy masculine, healthy feminine? So I'm like, okay, how do we unpack this, right? So maybe right from the beginning, I would love to maybe share, if you don't mind, the story of you and arriving at the place that you are. Because you're not just some sort of alien that just had incredible sex for 17 years and no issues.
That's definitely, you're right. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about the story of your marriage and the hardships that you guys went through?
Yeah. Wow. So it's almost, where do I begin on that? I think that a really big catalyst, awakening point was around 2015 when my husband, who was a veteran, and he was always this very all in, extreme kind of guy into whatever he went into. When he was in the military, he was always doing these things that nobody else was willing to do, and going up to the higher rise places and all of that. And so that year, he started experiencing these mysterious pains in his body. And at one point, he just stopped being able to do all these things that he was used to being able to do with his body. So he went through a complete dark night of the soul, loss of identity, and it lasted about 2.5 years. And through
Can
that
just
time,
let that sink in. 2.5 years of your partner struggling, and in today's society, the advice would be dump his ass.
yeah,
He's
after
not
a
being
few
masculine.
months, right? He's not being
providing.
masculine. Exactly.
And it's all on you. You should just find someone more masculine.
Who
Well, you
fulfills your
didn't.
needs?
Yeah,
and can take care of you.
because he didn't clearly. So
couldn't.
Struggle.
Yeah, Mrs. Struggle.
Like,
Yeah.
It's what the coined term would be.
Yeah.
Which is just
It
like
a struggle.
But you didn't,
what
because
society
I just
tells
want
us.
to understand 2.5 years. Most people don't have relationships that long.
Right. So that was like its own relationship.
Yeah.
I think of it as we've been in multiple committed relationships with each other throughout
I
these
love that.
17 years. I mean, just very distinct seasons. And that was one of them, where not only did we have 2 kids already at the time, we had just had a 3rd kid that she was less than a year old. I was pregnant with our 4th, because that's just how we roll. Like we have bam, bam, long break, bam, bam. And then I'm done, but that was a really stressful time, because not only was I the working parent already, we had decided when he got out of the military that he would be the stay-at-home dad and I would pursue things in my career. And we had 2 young
another
kids.
no-no according to the
exactly,
spiritual
another
coaches.
no-no. Oh my God, there's so many
I know
things.
you're doing it wrong. Clearly.
Right, I'm doing it so wrong, you guys. I'm doing it all wrong, and that's what
Yeah.
made it right.
Yeah,
That's what let it be right.
Yeah.
Because
So
everybody
good.
has space to be a human being. And when Ryan had that experience with the disability, he got really depressed. And he would go from being just numb and depressed and checked out to just raging, volatile ball of, just anger. And
do you
that-
think it's like the post-traumatic stress disorder caught
Yes.
up with him?
Yes, all of these things. This is when he got into more of the emotional healing, the spiritual journey, the psychosomatic things that were creating the pain in his body, because the doctors couldn't figure it out. And
As
that
usual.
added to the stress. I developed an autoimmune disorder during that time that lasted about 1.5 years, about 15, 16 months actually. And so that was my breaking point, because I had 4 kids, a husband who couldn't be a husband. So not only did I not have my husband anymore, but I didn't quite have a 5th child, but I had just it felt like a big burden,
He couldn't help you, like you said,
disabled
change
adult.
the
Couldn't even do the diapers, take out the trash, just anything. So what did I do? I just I tried to kind of outperform my traumas that I wasn't looking at yet, until it got to a certain point in my autoimmune stuff.
outperform your trauma. So it's so relatable.
I
And
tried to
so profound.
outrun it, and I'm really good at achieving things and focusing on work, and I hid behind work for years, especially as an entrepreneur.
On top of just to
Yeah.
hide the thing that you don't really want to face. And
I mean,
it's
also
way
you don't
in a way
really-
it's way easier to do that, right?
Yeah.
And it's
But-
way easier to pile loads of stuff on top instead of actually uncovering it and going, this is what I need to work on. But obviously with the added level of stress that brings, it's even harder to approach that trauma at the same time.
And I think
Yeah.
it's also this level of if I start digging in, I might crumble.
Mm-hmm.
So I
And
don't
you
have time
have to.
for that.
You kind of have to, or
yeah.
life is going to make everything crumble. I woke up one morning with my face completely swollen, so swollen that my eyes could barely open. And I had to go see a client that morning, and I showed up with looking like that. And she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I'm like, "I don't think so. I don't think I'm okay." And I had been doing GAPS diet. I'd been doing all these different things, and nothing was fixing it. And I would wake up with bloody sores and stains on my bedding. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I started, I got to the point where I decided something has to change, either in my environment or inside of me. And I can't control my environment only to a certain extent, right? I knew that my heart was telling me to stay in the relationship, and I had to find some way to connect with a sense of peace within it. I knew that, like I got that message from the universe. And so I started to just do a little bit of more mindset work. And I was totally obsessed with Tony Robbins and like all these self-help things. And that just led me one thing to another to this place where it led me on a journey of just massive spiritual awakening and reconnecting with my erotic nature. That was the big liberating point. And when Ryan started doing the journey, oh my God.
I think it's really interesting is that you didn't take the approach of just blaming Ryan.
Well, I did, but then I had to change it.
Well, no, but it's good because like some people just go, "You're the problem. I'm leaving. This doesn't work." But like you really you stood by him even though it was really challenging, and it's like that's so rare in itself as a quality within a couple. Obviously, you've been together for many years, but like that decision to actually say no, instead, actually, I want to support this person through this dark time because we are the team, and together we'll face the problem and not, cause that separation between us.
Exactly.
Which is rare in itself.
Yeah, and men don't get the space, the luxury either. I know that men and women each have their own challenges. All people do. But something that I have learned just witnessing Ryan's journey and then later on coaching men has been that a lot of men just don't have the space to fall apart and to discover who they are outside of what's expected of them in the traditional patriarchy.
That's exactly because it's men pay the price for patriarchy as well.
Yes, and
it's a very big price, and I think because we as women feel a little wounded, we feel like, what do you know? You're a white man. Like, how hard can it be for you in this society? And only until I think that's what a big reason why I didn't have much empathy for Jacob, because I looked at him as a white male and kind of like, life is so easy for you. We get the same jobs, we get paid twice as much for the same job, like continuously doing almost the same following.
From a good family that easy upbringing.
Yeah, and so
from the outside at least.
And I'm like, very hard Polish upbringing. I was like, privileged white men, like kind of like zero empathy from my side, and I think that was like a big reason why it created such a big disconnect for us, because I didn't understand that he's actually paying a very big price for the patriarchy, which doesn't allow him to just be vulnerable, doesn't allow him to make mistakes, to say, I don't know what to do with my life, and just take a year or two and just be confused, because that comes across as weak, as
unmasculine.
And not having your shit together. I think it's what I told myself for a very long time, to then be comfortable with actually feeling the total opposite. It just felt so unnatural.
Yeah.
And then obviously from those early kind of few months and years of our relationship, I think there was that disconnect between us, that kind of your perspective was that the hard Polish upbringing and mine was, but it's really interesting, and now we just see a total new side of it the moment you open the box of the work that needs to be done and the layers of that. Actually, we both have these parts of us that aren't perfect, and that's perfect in itself, and that's
I just think of
the work is.
To me, what has been the biggest change in the vibration, we had originally when I talked to you, I reached out because I was like, I need coaching because we just broke up, and people think it's a fake breakup, and I'm like, no,
you're like, I'm hurting.
And times of my life.
But it's funny, if we didn't share the breakup, they'll be like, oh, they're hiding. They just share the good parts, never the bad parts. I'm sharing the messy parts. People are like, she's being so dramatic about the breakup. I'm like, I just lost my soulmate, but I knew I had to let him go. Yeah. But also a big reason why I let him go was because I was listening to all these spiritual teachers, and he's like, you need the masculine man. He needs to be the provider. He needs to be this. Meanwhile, I'm doing really well, and I'm making a lot of money. And all of a sudden, I don't want to step out of that energy to have someone save me from work. And a lot of these coaches like, one day you're going to meet a guy, you don't have to work. And I'm like, I don't feel like
you want to work.
Yeah, because it's my mission. Yeah, and I just want to have both, and someone who can support me. And I also feel like some ideas and some concepts in this universe have to be birthed through a woman, because the way and the lens that we communicate and we go through life is very different, and we need both female and male CEOs.
Yeah,
it's about being able to transition between those energies. And I now see, I think the biggest fuck up about this whole spiritual teaching is that a woman dating a man, and now what I see is I'm a human being and you're a human being, and we're playing with those energies together, and I'm dating a human being, a soul that, as woo as it sounds, I stopped looking at him as of him like being stuck in the cage of the masculine energy, and just like, hey, let's explore, how does that feel? How does this feel? You know, how does it feel to be vulnerable? How does it feel to open up? How does it feel to take time, to surrender? And he's like, wow, scary. I don't know. I'm being judged. You know, guys are not meant to be all this. And I'm like, well, I'm not meant to be any of this either. So it's kind of fun.
Explore. It's the union. I feel like this is what the world needs collectively, is union of the feminine and masculine. And again, it's not
within one person.
It's not just men. It's not men and women. Yes, it's within yourself. And this is something that I started to notice a lot of people resonating with in what I was writing. At the earlier parts of this year, I first began really talking about inner sacred union, and how when our, let's say as women, right, our inner masculine energy is in this sacred form, it will fiercely protect the heart of our feminine. So our feminine
Literally
gets
what my spiritual
space.
coach says, yes.
And like and for men too, it's like when men begin to descend into their wild feminine, because it's not a woman only thing. When Ryan began to unleash that, there was so much rage. It was the chaos of the feminine that he got to tap into. And that is like uncorking all of the bullshit and all the fluff so that you can get down into the heart, the wisdom, the truth. And if you're too scared or you don't have the capacity to hold your own chaos, you can't hold that for your partner. And you know, whether man or woman. So there's just a lot in there about the inner dynamics of that.
So let's just unravel, because there's a lot of misconceptions about masculine and feminine energy, and people think that perhaps every time I mention this, women are like, how come being directional and having, you know, some be more regiment and kind of like organized is more masculine? That just makes me feel like the surrender is like weaker in a way. And right there's this idea that masculine is somewhat superior and then the feminine, it's passive and it's boring. But passive is a wounded feminine.
Yeah, there is the shadow aspect of either.
Yeah, so let's talk about like what's masculine energy, what's feminine energy. What are the shadows? Yeah.
Oh, total. Okay, this is good. We could do an entire podcast just on this. Okay. I'm going to try to condense it the best I can. And for anyone who wants to learn more, go to my page, go deeper. But beyond the typical polarity teachings that we might be, you know, seeing mainstream, is in a nutshell, the feminine, right? She is you can think of her as the life force, the life force energy flowing through something. So like a stream in the banks, like there's the bank that is providing that containment, that structure for her to flow. That's an example of the masculine presence. It's consciousness, containment, not control. That's the shadow. Control, it doesn't work. That's me. I need to control or repress the feminine. That's the shadow of the masculine.
Because it comes from the place of fear.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're
freedom.
chaos.
Inadequacy for us, of a male to think, oh, I should actually like take control and restrict in order to feel like I have like strength.
Yeah. But when you look at the religions and cultures that repress the feminine, when I look at this man, I don't look at the men of these cultures, of patriarchal cultures, thinking, wow, they're so powerful. I think of like, oh, you're so scared and weak.
Yes, because
that you need to like
fear.
cover.
You're masking something. You're masking.
Yes,
Insecurity,
because you know the power of the feminine, so you're gonna cover her up and, you know, repress her because you know how powerful she is, and you know you can't handle her, so you're just gonna like repress her as much as possible. But it's not really working.
No, and the sacred masculine is deeply reverent of the feminine. He approaches her with the utmost honor and respect and reverence. And so, there is.
So how does it feel to be in a relationship where you are celebrated for your healthy masculine and feminine, that you are able to tap in both energies and you don't feel like you're in a cage of your gender?
Well, it feels very liberating. I think that's the word. I feel very supported in my relationship, and not just, so there are so many different ways to feel supported and support your partner that go outside of who's making the money, or who's the provider, or who's calling the shots and setting the dates. And, you know, one thing that really helped, that really clicked for me was recognizing that just for money, for example,
Yeah, because that's a
Financial
very
flow.
big topic
Yeah.
in the relationships. Yeah.
it's like if it comes through me or it comes through him, neither of us are the provider. This is just how I see it. It's the source of the abundance that is providing through us. Same thing as a mother. We're taking care of our kids, right? But I'm not the source of their care. I'm taking care of, like, the universe is taking care of them through me, through Ryan, through their teachers, through their friends, parents, like through the community.
Collective, right?
Yeah. And this takes such a burden off of, like, oh my God, I can't fuck it up, you know?
But
And you
also,
can
like, such a
surrender.
big ego. If you think that you are the source of happiness of your own children,
Yeah.
it's a ego trap, right? You feel like this is no one else can provide, right?
Yeah,
No
yeah.
grandma. Like, I'm not gonna leave my kids with grandma
Because that's
or a friend.
control again.
Right.
Fear.
Yeah. And
What show were we watching recently on Netflix? A money thing where the woman was the provider, bringing in a lot of money, and she had all of these like barriers up for her stay-at-home husband
He had-
because she brought the money in, but she
like
just
rules.
didn't have any respect
Yeah.
for him,
for him, even though his day-to-day was like
taking care of the kids.
so much work.
So it's like the
And-
a lot of women's roles, but reversed. And
Yeah.
oh yeah,
and
that's
but it was
crazy.
really interesting to see, and like the way that she approached it was just like, I bring the money, so I decide what's done with it.
Yeah.
You don't get any. Like, it was quite a shock to see.
Yeah,
which
the
is obviously
Ramit-
understanding in the other way around is sadly quite common.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you
Get a
know,
little allowance, and you know, for us, our money has always been our money.
Yeah.
Whether he was his deployment stuff coming in, or me being the one working, or us working on certain things together. It's I know that this is
it's hard
individual
to,
to
get
each
there,
couple.
though. It's hard to, like, from a masculine standpoint, from my, like, it's hard to be comfortable.
He doesn't
with
want
that.
to
Like,
touch my money,
No,
basically.
yeah, it's hard to be comfortable to go, and as we've realized, like, we go through seasons, right?
Yeah.
And like right now, I can see it's like this is Aggie's season of like business growth
Yeah,
and success
flourishing.
and this, and it's like to kind of like find comfort in that, to find different ways that I can support our family and our team is a huge learning curve for me, but it comes in waves.
Right.
And it's like that may transition in a few years' time, but as a team, we figure it out together.
Yes.
I think
hard
it's
to
really,
do.
really
Yes.
important, and it's even harder for men because I think the initial reaction is like, "Well, you're making so much money. I should be making just as
Yeah.
much,
Right.
no
Yeah.
more
I should be making
actually,
more, yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
a guy. And if you're not, then Jacob feels terrible about himself, and But there are seasons, right? And I think we have this running joke that every year we go back to Mykonos to Greece. It's my 4th holiday.
Yes.
And every holiday we have conversations about money and who's struggling. And like first year I was struggling, second year Jacob was struggling, and I was making a lot. And
You take turns.
it really
Well, that's the
is.
nature of relationship, though. Whether
Yeah.
it's like our mental health or our spiritual journey or something going on with the body or money, it's just can you be a team and
Figure it out
design
Exactly.
it together?
Yeah, so like
Problem.
it's- yeah,
We
it's-
saw this, and it was really funny. You might relate to this. This post that I shared with Aggie a few months ago, and it's like this
married couple.
The married couple. They're outside of a car. Their kids are inside, and it's just them looking at each other and going, "Remember, it's us against the problem. The children are the problem."
Yes, I've seen this.
But it's a funny way of putting the fact that it's like, whatever challenge there is, it's not to draw a divide between us two.
Yeah.
It's like we're together. And like
Yes,
you and
yes.
Ryan are together. Whatever the problem is, tackle together. And
Yeah.
that, that's such a sacred thing to have between one another, because it's so easy. We've used to do it
Yeah.
so much to kind of just go, okay, that's your problem, or you figure that out, or I'll
Yeah.
figure that out.
No, it's more
Yeah.
like you, right? I think that's the man idea, that he can't come to me because he's
Yeah.
with a problem because he's gonna feel weak. But like
Yeah.
3 years ago, you lost money in crypto,
Yeah.
and so you were like stressed about money. I was like, don't worry. And then 2 years ago, I lost my swimwear business, so he was like, don't worry. And then this year was like
got
the
each other's
opposite.
backs.
Yeah. So it's just like it's ebbs and flows, and just understanding that it's much easier for me to feel like I can surrender and be supported than for him. And I think that's what really is, I think, unfair in today's society, even in the spiritual world, is that expectation that men be the provider always.
And always be grounded.
Yeah.
And always hold space. And always have capacity for the feminine chaos. Like,
That's
nobody
not
can
fair.
do that. Nobody can do that. There is also a level of consent and keeping your pulse on the heart of the relationship as you are in your own process. And so a big part of the work that I find myself doing more and more of this year is that wild feminine embodiment, where women
For
are
both
tapping
men and
in.
women.
But yes. However, the bulk of the work, the people that come to me are the women. And they're just like, I feel like a crazy bitch and I feel insane and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm burning down my life. I'm scared to burn down my life. And it's because this intensity is so unfamiliar to them and it's terrifying. So for them to learn how to go deep into that underworld of their feminine chaos and find the deeper wisdom there to bring into their relationship instead of unleashing all the fury on the man, because he's supposed to hold my chaos. It's just there's so much distortion in that needs to bring that brings us back to our personal practice and going deeper with the goddess or with the universe or whatever, however you want to identify this.
Yeah. And it stems from genuinely women being taught the nice girls, right? So like,
Yes.
be a good girl.
Yeah.
And so I am so trained that to being a good girl and like filling each other's expectations, growing up in Poland, you're from Peru.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very much like a similar upbringing up until this day. My lovely mother, when we have dinner, put some more potatoes on his plate. That's not enough for him. I'm like, Mom, he's sitting in front of the potatoes. I'm right here. I'm not gonna get up and like feed him, which I think is this beautiful care.
Yeah.
But it's also like he's also not disabled, and it's just like what I grew up with, and it's kind of like women in Poland choose to put other people's needs in front of their own, but then we're resentful. And
Yes.
then when we're resentful, we don't want to have sex because we're like, don't fucking touch me.
Yeah.
Because you just like,
you owe me.
yeah. And so it's just like, it's a cascade of all the things that are happening. And I think what I definitely like picked up from my family that I'm trying to heal from is stepping into the mother energy in the relationship. So let's talk about that, because you had this.
Okay, because I did a lot of caretaking in that time that he was disabled.
Yeah, and I love that post that you did in the bathtub.
Yeah,
the famous
washing
one.
his hair. Yeah, that for whatever reason, like 4 weeks after I posted it, Instagram decided to show it to the masses. I'm like, thank you, and why? Okay,
Why? Because we all mother our partners, right? And it's like Jacob has a very strong relationship with his mom, right? So let's talk about the shadow of that, right? And like the benefits.
Within a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's like, is it coming from fear or love? And when it comes from fear, it shows up in this more kind of emasculating way. It's more critical, controlling. I need to tell you what to do because I don't trust that you can do it yourself. And I started to really see this after becoming a mom, because moms were like famously do that to the dads. Like, you don't know how to do this, right? Let me just do it myself. And then years of that leads to so much resentment. Again, that was me. I've been there. And then we blame them, and then and we can't forgive ourselves for it. But the big distinction between nurturing a partner and mothering them is the presence of respect for them and a trust. If there is no respect, it's going to come across. It's not about what you say in form or what you do in form. I could be washing his hair as an act of love out of abundance of my heart, because I just want to show him my just deep
Worship
love
him,
and devotion. Yes, I love ritualistic worship. Like, I love it. Or I could be doing it because, man, you obviously can't wash your own hair and you stink and like you got knots in your hair.
Yeah.
So it's not about the form.
Yeah, and you don't know how to feed yourself, so grab those potatoes, because you
On
don't.
the other side, then it really emasculates the
Yes.
man. It really makes them feel unworthy.
Like a little boy.
Then you constantly think, okay, like, I want to change that. So you try and be nice, you try and do this, and it constantly feels like you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's just the danger in itself, because you're constantly, you're in a losing battle from the beginning.
Yeah, and the harder you try, the more she tries,
Yeah,
and then
then
it's like,
it's more distance, and then the polarity's gone.
yeah.
But also the post, Lucy's post that I shared with you a few weeks ago, that was the first time when I heard somebody mention the shadow of everything we do. So we work with a great spiritual coach, and I would just say, I need to mother Jacob, and I always have to be the one motivating. And she's like, what's the shadow? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, what's your underlying benefit of that? I'm like, no, I'm in a victim mentality that I have no benefit. It's like, no, you're scared, you're controlling, like you don't trust the universe. And same thing for Jacob. She was like, isn't it nice when you
Takes care of things.
yeah
Yeah.
and you
The comfort of that, because I know that that's from the feeling that Aggie's gonna. It's enjoyable that someone else is dealing with things, and I don't have to worry about them. And you fall into that kind of comfort of doing it, but not from a healthy place. And
More of a complacency.
And then no, it really is, and it's like there's ways I'm sure to do that healthy, but it's very easy to fall into the not so healthy way of it becoming a trend.
But also like you being scared of your own power, right? And I think it's just like there's the element of like not feeling fully seen by me because I don't see him as a human being. I see him as a man. And so there was that resentment as well. Let's talk about the shadow of just the dynamic.
Oh, like the mothering
Yeah.
part. Okay. Yeah, because the mothering, if we're in this need to control and distrust, there is that distrust in each other, right? But beyond that, there's also a distrust in ourselves, that if that person lets us down, we won't be able to handle that, or we don't want to deal with the fallout. But even deeper than that is a distrust in the universe and just the flow of life. Do I trust the unfolding of life? And can I let that deep wisdom speak to me when it's time to push that threshold and say like, hey, babe, like, it's time for this to change, from a place of grounding and sovereignty, and not from a place of whining and demanding and giving ultimatums.
Yeah.
It hits different. And when we can do that, we rise together. There are seasons where Ryan's just tuned in a different way, and he stands in that truth, and it just calls me to rise, and vice versa.
Beautiful.
And I feel like that's how it's meant to be in relationship. It's not just one person, calling all the shots and doing the leading.
And just super inspirational for me to see someone who's been married for so long, and also someone that, like it's this illusion, that we try to recreate the initial spark, right? The initial spark is so good. It was so great when we first met. The sex was so good. Oh my God. And now 17 years later is like a brother and sister, and you just kind of like, get angry with each other and resentful. And yet I go to your Instagram and you guys are like the hottest couple and clearly having the great sex. So how do you get there? Like the one thing that I just say, like, I didn't really think that people that say they had great sex after 17 years are being truthful. I was like, they just say that because
that's not real.
I was like, they just say that because they don't know any better.
Real, right?
Yeah. They just try to feel good about themselves. And then for us, after 5 years together, with breaks and this and that, I think our sex life has gotten so much better. I'm like, oh my God, I would never be able to get to this level of surrender and play and kink with somebody else. So I was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, you can go deeper. You go deeper.
Excited for the next 10 years of like, where's this going?
Like, what's in store in the next 10 years? Like, we're excited because we're like, look at where we don't want to go back to the way that it was when we were newlyweds. Yeah, everything was novel and new and like exciting in a different way. There's this like chemical concoction of being in love.
Unknowns.
Yeah, so much to discover. But then the deeper that you have gone together, the deeper you have met yourself, the deeper you can meet the other person.
And the better your sex is.
Yes, and it's more connected. The orgasms are more open. And as a woman, really being more open to love, because that is ultimately what this experience is a sharing of love, a coming together of love in its most heightened, like beautiful expression, ecstatic expression. So when we can come into that with an open heart and really open our bodies and receive that, they feel it. They feel a different experience. And we just create a whole different, almost like a psychedelic feeling experience that I could not tap into 17 years ago. So,
but you don't know what you don't know. That's the funny thing.
Which is like, what's ahead even,
Yeah. You're going to come back in 5 years' time and she's going to be like, wow, I can barely
you guys. Let me tell you.
Great.
But it's also that vulnerability as well that draws you much closer. And I think like the novelty of the kind of honeymoon period is fun, but when you actually really get to know someone really open up and be vulnerable and share, like that connection is unlike anything you can get in the first honeymoon period, as you say, and like 5 years for us, it's like we've like really got to a vulnerable place with one another to really see each other for who we are, and that in itself is such a connecting force for us.
Yeah, and I also think it's like it comes from a place like I think maybe originally there were some situations in our relationship where there was like a bit of jealousy or a grounded jealousy. Let's just put it that way. And so there's this always underlying level. If you think that your sex was only good at the beginning, there's always this underlying idea that if another beautiful young woman comes up,
could take him away from you.
Yeah, because I'm no longer, I'm like used item that's already no longer,
it's not new and shiny anymore. Right?
Yeah, literally. And when now what we have in our sexual life is so exciting and grounded and fulfilling that I feel so safe with Jacob being surrounded by a million naked women. Like, you know, we're in Burning Man. Yeah. You know,
feel secure in your relationship.
Yeah, literally last week.
Literally last week.
And maybe the old me would feel intimidated when he talks to our friends who have their boobs out, because I was like, I mean, they're out, like they're naked in front of me like this. And
we made some of our best friends at the nude beach.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Just throw that in there, but be around.
Yeah. Beautiful.
There's
right?
just
like,
this it's free. This such a deep heart connection that you're not.
That
like,
I feel safe in the relationship. I'm
feeling
safe
like,
for him to see another woman naked because I don't feel like he would be able to even he even would crave that because he knows that the connection that we have and the magic of the depth of our orgasm is so much deeper. Because we've been through so many things that I'm like, I know you can't get that anywhere else.
You have so many relationships in this one relationship, right?
Yes.
And it's like that, you know, rebirth and dying of these different parts of our relationship as we've gone through these 5 years. It's like, you don't just, doesn't happen just randomly. That's taken the work, which now takes us to a totally different place.
But it also with that said, I think sex is just a beautiful metaphor of what the nervous system of relationship is.
Yeah,
I don't know if
it's a mirror of that. No,
Yeah.
and even in our own nervous system. So, for example, for me, a big part of my journey in our sex life was starting a self-pleasure practice.
Oh, yes.
And that was life-changing. And I tell women, if you say you have a self-pleasure practice and it has not changed your fucking life, this is not what I'm talking about. Like, it's not that. You're not even scratching the surface. I mean, like, you meet God through your pussy. That's what I'm talking about. And then you get to experience this, like your body begins to memorize. First, remember. It begins to remember the flow, the free-flowing, open state to love. But also it begins to remember, like, bliss is your core essence. Love is your essence.
They say that women grow through pleasure.
Yes. And so
that's
also
why
our brains are just building these neural connections, right? And associating things more with pleasure, and your nervous system becomes more adaptable and flexible. You get more into this flow of ease and receiving
and flirting with
so
life.
good.
And because we live, again, in the masculine world, men grow through discipline, right? And hardship. And so we have David Goggins, run 400 miles.
Like the vasopressin. You got to take the vasopressin with your brothers,
and don't eat for 7 days and da-da-da. And so women jump on these trends because, I mean, I'm one of them as well, right? Because I feel like...
And it's fun, it's fun, but...
But I never understood that I actually grow through pleasure. And I grow through letting myself experience all of these things and letting myself rest, which I wasn't really allowing myself in the first place. And so, like they say, master your masturbation. But I had so many girlfriends that would be like, she's like, I never had an orgasm through penetration, never had an orgasm with a man. I'm like, but I'm like, oh, so like, but you can get there yourself. And she's like, I don't really masturbate. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So we're not practicing. It is a practice, just like meditation actually can be very deeply meditative. I have gotten into deeper meditative states, otherworldly realms kind of states, even more than I have been in my meditation practices through my self-pleasure practice. And then I remember it was so exciting about 6 weeks into doing the practice every day. I just became very like, this is going to be a thing for me. I heard it very strongly in my spirit. It was like, you need to masturbate every day. I was like, what?
For how long?
I don't
what
need
was the
to.
goal?
I didn't have a definitive number of minutes initially.
I just wanted to give people homework. So
Yeah,
let's
no,
just-
give you homework. If you do start this, I would say even just 15 minutes of, we're not going straight into penetration, where there's a whole de-armoring process that a lot of women actually have to do just to actually receive, for their bodies to receive penetration without being numb or uncomfortable or burning even. So
It's like the practice between, two people as
Yeah.
well. It's
But, like,
that
we're so
foreplay the entire
foreplay.
day is
Yeah.
the moment it begins after
Yeah.
the last time you've had sex. That foreplay
Yeah.
begins
Yeah.
in a way, right?
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you look at your entire life as foreplay and then the self pleasure practice every day for 15 minutes, maybe without even an orgasming the end goal.
Yes. I would say remove the orgasm goal altogether, just in general, always.
Huge thing
Even
for
now,
a
I
guy
still
as well,
years
like,
in.
Thinking,
Yeah.
oh, I have to. That's the goal. If I don't get there, then I've quote unquote failed.
Yeah. And then it
That's
becomes all about
dangerous.
that.
And
And
then
you lose the
actually don't
presence.
enjoy the presence of being in that moment without an end goal and just being there for that.
Yeah.
And I always
Yeah.
think of the best sex sessions we've ever had. I don't even remember if we had an orgasm
Yeah.
because everything
yeah,
around it
yeah.
was so cool.
And then
I'm
some of
like-
the best orgasms happen when you're just totally, so there was just like a couple nights ago. Was it last night? No, it was a couple nights ago. we
morphed
were
into-
having our moment and he was doing these things, and it's like a new thing still for me as of this year to be able to squirt. And so like with him, so I'm like, is it gonna happen? Is it not? And I started to get into this mode of like, okay, well, if it doesn't happen, then this and this, and I'm getting in my head, and I kind of lost that feeling, that connection with my pleasure. And but I know this by now. I've practiced this enough times that I catch myself, I'm aware of it, and then I just make a decision. I'm like, I'm just gonna relax, and just what happens happens. And then 2 minutes later, it happens. So it's just releasing the attachment
The pressure.
to that thing, whatever that thing is.
Because it is really an ego when a guy's like, oh, I know how to get a girl squirt and this
Yeah.
and that. And I'm like, for us, it just happens. I don't know
It's
why
just such a
sometimes
deep
I squirt and
surrender.
sometimes I don't. I have no
Yeah.
idea what it's like.
There's a
And
lot
you
of
can be doing the
factors.
exact same thing, but sometimes it's just not going to happen. And he's like, is it going to happen? I'm like, I don't know. Don't ask me. And I don't want to like look for it,
Yep.
So it's
exactly.
just like, because it just, I'm like, I
Then
don't
it's a
know.
performative
Yeah.
thing, which like we're not here to shoot porn to perform for people. Like we're here to have an experience with each other and to experience each other.
Yeah, I think guys put so much stress on performance, right? It's such a big thing. Obviously, women do as well.
And
but
women
both
too,
we all,
yeah.
Like it's such a, especially going into a new relationship, the anxiety around performance and having to do that, and like,
Yeah.
For us, I think the biggest pressure is to look hot. I think we're so ingrained that we have to look hot that it's such a big thing that things that turn me on and really just make me feel like, oh my God, are not hot.
Right. They don't look pretty and like
No, I'm not like this,
torso
like, yeah,
open
yeah.
and
Yeah, yeah.
boobs
Yeah.
perky.
But I remember like
the
originally,
photos of when a woman is like mid-orgasm are so.
yeah, but that's
Very-
how we used to have
like-
orgasm at the beginning. I was
Yeah.
like, I know this looks hot in the
This
mirror, so
angle
I
it
just
should
like,
be at.
I'm gonna be riding you like this because I look good.
It's not that fun.
And now I'm
actually enjoying it.
Yeah, no, I'll get into animal. I'm like, Ryan, you can tell when I'm coming. I'm like,
Peanut woke up.
oh
He's
my
like,
God.
He's like,
Oh,
I know
sorry,
that
Peanut.
moment.
He's like,
Yeah,
where's my sex
but-
toy?
Yeah, but it's not porn pretty. My
I'm sweating
orgasm are like wild and raw, and
Yes,
it's like,
yes.
and I stopped thinking about, do I look hot? Am I like, do I have
You're
the
so in
perfect?
the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's what like
Yeah.
for guys is the performance. For women, it's like, what do we look like? What do we seem like?
Yeah, and guys even too, because he can make
Yeah,
some
yeah.
funny faces, and we'll, be like, I can tell when you're about,
And embrace it.
hot
Like,
to
that's
me.
the fun, yeah, like that's the fun part of it.
But it's
That's
so
the more
beautiful.
authentic part of it, which you only learn from going through these different cycles
Yeah.
with one another.
Yeah, and also feeling so loved by you that I don't feel like I need to pretend.
Yes.
Suck in my stomach, whatever I was doing
Yeah.
the first time we were having sex, to just like make myself look hotter, and I'm so fun. I like cringe when I think back.
But then it does start so much more before that as well, right? Like that to get to that place, like in just regular day-to-day life.
Yes,
there are so many
as a
things
lifestyle.
that have to fall into place in order for us to feel that way and feel comfortable to be in that point.
Yeah. to show
Yes.
yourselves to each
Yeah.
other in the small ways throughout life.
Yeah.
But we're so smart as women. We, someone can tell us, I love you for who you are. But if they compliment us only when we have makeup on,
Right?
or
Like, I need
they
this
say-
all the time.
right? Like, so Jacob compliments me when I'm like in my ugliest biohacking glasses and my Roadrunner, like bun. He's like, you look so hot. I'm like,
Isn't that
and
the
that's-
best?
Yeah.
I'll
And
be
then,
wearing my glasses, and Ryan's like, "You're so hot." I'm like, "Thank you."
but it is funny how like that's what we pack.
Then I
pick-
forget sometimes when she's all dressed up and looking amazing.
I forgot to compliment her when
She's
she
like,
did
I-
spent time on it.
No, but I appreciate that. I remember I was in a relationship. Every time I would dress up, he was like, "Oh wow, you look so good. That's so good, so good." And we pick up on those hints. And
Yeah.
what are you telling
the
me with
praise.
that? You're
Not
telling
show
me,
confidence, because it does
Yeah,
the opposite. Because
yeah.
when you're not dressed up and you're not doing that, you and yourself don't feel hot because you've never been told.
yeah. So you're basically training me that you only find me attractive when I have my makeup on and I'm kind of like the version of Aggie, the official one, done up.
Yeah.
And so I never really can feel like you love me for who I am because
Yeah.
you don't compliment me like, oh, that was really smart what you said. Wow, I noticed that you gave water to our dog,
the
and
little
just like
acknowledgements.
yeah.
Yeah.
I see how caring you are. Oh, thank you for doing that. And I'm like, oh, he loves me for me. He doesn't love me because I put my fake lashes on or whatever.
Right, because I look perfect. And also to that point, I've been thinking a lot about how, like, what makes a person hot? Like, what makes Ryan hot to me? Because earlier this year, he did a 41-day fast, and he
Which
was
is
skin
crazy.
and bones at the end. I don't recommend it, you guys. I don't recommend it, y'all. It's not for everybody. It's not for my body, but he felt that invitation spiritually to do it, and he said yes, and it was wildly transformational. And during that time, I went back to Peru to visit my homeland while he was fasting, taking care of 4 kids. It was just a crazy leap of faith all around. But even when he was skin and bones, I was like, I fucking love this man. I want this man. He doesn't look attractive. He looks like he's on the verge of like peace, He looks extremely malnourished. He was malnourished, But even coming back, he went through this phase of like his body just retaining too much fluid, and then he had like his face was all ballooned up for a while, and he was just so out of proportion to what I'm used to seeing him. And I was like, still like, let me grab you and let me just, and it's to me, the way I see it is like the difference between, let's say, a perfect plastic fuck doll and a goddess is their embodiment of their fullness. And he embodied so much integrity and truth and just who he is that I was like, I'm
I'll
gonna
still
wait for
do
that.
you.
I'm wait for that. 2.5 months of celibacy in our marriage that we'd never gone that long without having sex except for his deployment. That
Wow.
was 2010. And so I'm like, I desire this man because of who he is.
So much more deeper than the physical
And that's attractive.
look, right? Like
Yeah.
for women especially, like I think you guys see so many more layers of a man, and it's like it takes time for a man to really uncover those in a woman, to really see her
And really appreciate
beyond
them.
the physical attraction. I think that's what's drawn us hugely close as well.
I think for us it was always mental, right? The integrity of a man. It's like, wow, so hot. I think for guys it's way more visual.
Yeah.
So it's a little
At least
challenging.
initially, I think.
Initially, yeah.
Well, it can be, across the board.
Yeah.
I know I have some friends, I have some good, close friends who are women, and they will say, I need a man to be this level of attractive, and that's fine. Ryan's attractive by traditional standards, I think, is what I hear. And so, I mean, he's like the
everyone
most
tells
attractive
me.
man in the world to me. But yeah, they're like, your husband's hot. I'm like, okay, he is to me. But there is so much more depth to that. I think it can go both ways, just depending on maybe the physical attraction gets our attention initially. And then we kind of stick around and see like, oh, now there's chemistry, there's sexual chemistry,
but I
and
love-
then there's
Physical attraction,
spiritual.
it's so shallow, right? And
But
you're
that's
never
the
gonna
funny-
get into the deeper parts of your relationship.
Right?
ever.
And it takes some time. You can't you don't just go straight in there from
But
seeing
also,
somebody.
I love that you said, I don't even know if he's attractive because
Right, to any other people?
Why? Because the energy is so strong that I can't hear what you say. I almost want to say, your energy is so strong, I can't see what you look like. Because it's like,
Yeah.
You're
in
reading
a
so
way.
many other things. You're seeing.
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
many
and
other
that's why
things.
Instagram is such a
Yeah.
funny place, because when you look at someone on Instagram, it's so easy to get overwhelmed or feeling like you're not good enough or not pretty enough or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I have never felt, when I look at someone's life on Instagram, very often I feel like my life is not good enough. or like, wow, she's really crashing, or she's beautiful, I want to be her. Sometimes it does happen. I have never had that in person, because when you meet the full package, you're like, oh,
They're a human being too.
yeah, they're human. And, you know, the picture is perfect. But when you meet them, like, yes, it's great, but like, that's not me.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that funny how
Yeah.
like the moment we see the energy, it's like immediately in a way more beautiful, but also very, very
It's like
healing.
humanizing
Yeah.
too. Yeah. And it's
Danger
freeing.
of Instagram, right?
Yeah, like
Just
you see,
never know. And that's why a lot of I get a lot of comments from people and DMs, and they're like, thank you for sharing the messy parts,
yeah.
because I'm like, this is important. It's real,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, that's the ironic thing about half the stuff we share. It's too vulnerable. Be
Ah,
more, it's be more vulnerable.
Be vulnerable,
And then
but not that
yeah,
vulnerable.
Yeah, sorry, it's too,
That's
it's
too much.
now.
Yeah.
Like, but like, I think it's important, because I think it really, at least for us, allows us to feel more authentic with what we're
Yes.
sharing.
You're in
because it's-
integrity with yourself when you're,
Yeah, because like I've been for so long just shared only the good parts, and I think only in the last couple of years I've been more vulnerable with how I'm feeling and what's coming up, and the great stuff and the not so great stuff. But it gives
Yeah.
you way more integrity in who I feel like I am.
100%. And the funny thing is that we did a podcast together about our breakup, and we wake up the next day, we're in Bali, and my inbox, like, and all the comments, like, you guys are fucked up, like, I hate you, this is, and Jacob's like, I told you not to record it. And I remember thinking,
I went straight into a shell of like, oh,
Yeah.
and I'm
Protecting.
like, and I said to Jacob, I'm actually glad that I didn't get rewarded for speaking my truth, because it would be so easy. And sometimes you
Right.
have to speak your truth, even if you're not going to get rewarded. That's the hardest time when you, so you're going
There's
to
some
get,
fallout.
yeah, so
I had
people
to
just
go
saw,
through a whole moment of like, it took me a few hours that afternoon. I think
Yeah.
I was like, okay, actually, I like this negativity. This is great. I'm embracing this. But at first I was like, bad idea. Retract. But like, it's really helpful.
but the
to go
funny thing
through
is,
things
like, people
that.
just saw a 1 minute moment of that interview, the 500,000, 1 million people that watched that, and they made the judgment.
Yeah.
But the people that actually listened to the podcast were like, I
this
saw
is-
my relationship in that. You
Yeah.
changed my life. This was
Yeah.
really, really, really profound. But it is funny how like it was worth doing it, not because it resonated with people. It's because it was my truth that I finally got to share.
Well,
And
even
I don't give a
between us,
fuck
that
if
didn't
it
even go out
resonates or
to
not.
anyone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If
Have
that
to
didn't
do
go
it.
out to anyone at all, it would have been a really helpful thing for us to do.
Yeah, just for
Sit
yourselves.
and talk and share and get things out that you might not necessarily have talked about.
Right.
Obviously turned into a great podcast, but like even
Yeah.
that conversation for us. And
I mean, because as influencers, we talk about so many things. Take this vitamin. Vacuum biscuit is great. Italy's amazing. Best coffee in Rome. But then when it comes to like, hey, this is what actually is present for me. This is the most present thing in my life is this breakup. People are like, no, I just go back to coffee.
Well, it triggers people's shadows too, and the stuff that they're not ready to look at.
Yeah.
That's what I have found. It was back in, I think, 2019, I started to really put like my shit out there. And there were so many people who were like, I can't, but what? And I've still gone through waves of people who will just unfollow me, who will just like hate me or whatever. It's not about me. And I was actually, we were sitting around the campfire last night, and Ryan's dad is visiting, and we were talking, and he said, he was talking about courage, and he's like, if you could have more courage, would you want more courage? And I was like, I think I have an adequate dose of courage, but the things that used to feel like they would require so much courage just became the norm, to the point that if I don't do it, I feel like something isn't right.
or you're not being integral to who you
Exactly.
are.
Yeah.
And I think we underestimate the need for self-expression and the fullest expression, which means that what's present to me is that I finally shared the Aggie that I am. And if people don't like that, that's great, because that means you don't like me.
Yeah.
But if you like me for someone who I'm not, that's not love. So in a way, the people that did stay, I feel way more connected to my audience. I'm sure you can resonate as well, because the people that listen to this or like got to know me a little better and stayed, I'm like, oh, cool, they see me a little
They
bit.
say unfollow. I'm like,
Yeah, we're like,
off
bye.
you go.
Yeah, so
See ya.
Yeah, that just allows you to then build a better connection with, in this case, your audience, but also yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's such a
more
tough line,
aligned.
because I think there's this argument by my mom, hi mom, and a lot of people like oversharing,
Right.
And it's
I have tackled this topic too. Yes.
So let's talk about that, because there's this idea is like keep some things private, and I do think people are funny. I'm like, I do keep things private. Trust me, you don't know half of the shit.
Exactly.
But
There's
so obviously
much
I'm being
more.
very selective with what I share, but I selectively choose things that seem vulnerable and scary and different, because I feel like I have this intuition like this is needed to be shared.
It's that.
It's helpful
That's it
for
right
you,
there.
It's helpful for them or whoever's watching.
Yeah,
to
it
be able to
serves
hear
them.
Yeah.
It serves the greater the greater mission or the purpose that you're here with. Yeah, and so the way that I see it is, well, for one, for everything that I share that is like vulnerable or just very real or messy or like very explicit, I know, whatever. There are, I don't even know, probably 100 moments that I have not shared or more. And actually probably more, that's being very conservative. Thousands of moments. But it's just a blip in time. And it's this, I have learned to connect with that deeper wisdom. I literally feel it in my body. I recognize like the wisdom center it comes from. It's like deep in my pussy. Okay, that's where it comes from. It's this womb, like kind of a, not butterflies, but like this aliveness. And it's like, yeah. And my whole body lights up and it's like, yes. And I follow that and I've learned to honor that. And so, I mean, that feels and looks and sounds different for every person. But ultimately, it's connecting with that deeper knowing of when it's time to share something and what things are meant for ourselves. And it's less about how many things am I keeping private in the bank, and how many am I putting out there, and more about connecting to that truth and honoring that.
And ultimately, we share our life to inspire people. And some of the things can, you can get positively inspired. Like I can look at you on the because you do pole dancing, so I can be like, wow, she's so hot, I want to do it. Or I can be inspired by like, what a slut, and then unfollow, but then it stays with me and feel, and that rage triggered something that I will maybe reconnect with activates me to actually reconnect with my feminine. We don't know that, right? And it's obviously nice that everyone would look at you and like, oh, pole dancing, so beautiful.
Like,
but in reality,
as
a vessel of the messenger, your ego has to be stripped. It's like some people will take it the positive way, some people will take it the negative way. But if your outcome is to trigger something in people for the change or to help them reconnect with their sexuality, it's not really up to you which way it's gonna go.
It's not up to me anyways. Like I am surrendered. This is the thing about surrender. Like I can surrender to Ryan sexually, right? But ultimately I'm surrendering to love itself. And if this is a way of life for me, then I'm choosing to live surrendered. That means all of the ideas that come through me are not something that I'm planning ahead. Literally, it all just comes in the moment or at night, and then I'll share it in the morning, but I'm not like calling the shots here. And the more that I can really respect that and honor that and let what's coming alive just like come through me,
which I think it's so beautiful, because if you were full of ego, you would be like, I just want the recognition. I want everyone to clap. And
I want everybody to like me. I mean, I have had to be stripped of that so painfully. But I have also had women, specifically women who even just recently, they say like, I unfollowed you 6 months ago because I just couldn't stand it. And then they're like, but the universe brought me back, and this is exactly what I need, and every single thing you're sharing is resonating and changing my life.
I had those women too. I was like, I hated you, and then I came back, and I'm like, okay,
and now I'm here again.
I'm like, I'm not in control of any of that,
Yeah, so funny. But I think it's like really beautiful when you actually like. That's what I really feel in your work, that you're not here to be looking for people to
like you or hate you.
To like you or hate you.
I'm
Just
here to be me.
And that's like this the need for self-expression and for being our truest self is so deep in human beings. And as you step into that, like your truest expression, you don't want to like hide parts of you that feel so true to you. One final question. I want to talk about kinks, because I love how you explain that. And how does one embrace kinks? Because I think we have this idea from porn that kink is, wearing a lot of leather and just basically abusing our partner.
50 Shades of Grey style.
Yeah, but there's like there are different shades of BDSM and kinks and whatnot.
More than 50. There's a full spectrum.
Yeah.
I mean,
So how did you get into kink?
Oh God.
Personally?
God, it's funny. We've always been kinky. We just didn't know what to call it. In fact, Ryan tells the story of his first orgasm all the time, and he was so kinky. And he told his dad the story, and his dad was like, "You've always been kinky. Oh my God, you were a kinky child." He's like, "Yeah, apparently I was." But yeah, we've both been very kinky. We just thought.
So what is even kinky?
So kinky. So okay. So this is the way that I like to define it, and this is based on one of my favorite humans and favorite sex educator, Kimmy Inch. She is a professional dominatrix. Yeah, and she does somatic therapy, and I love the way she defines it. Is that it's anything that is kind of edgy for you or taboo for you. So for somebody, doing oral sex could be kinky. And for somebody else, like having a gang, bang,
or like a cage,
orgy, or being in a cage, that's kinky. Yeah. So it's whatever you consider to be taboo. And what's interesting about that is sometimes that the more we explore these kinky spaces with each other, it stops becoming taboo. And it's just like, oh, okay. People find that some things lose their excitement or edge because this is so interesting because it can be very interlinked with the healing journey, right? Like when you actually release the shame and you heal through a lot of shame. That
Brene Brown, right? Like the
on.
shame lives in darkness, right? So
when you speak it out. But so this is the powerful thing about kink is that it has a space to exist and be celebrated with other people who also accept that or maybe also embody that or enjoy that. Yeah. So there's not this shame of like, oh, you like wearing a leash? That's fucking weird.
Yeah.
So I haven't been into it as much lately, but I will do it every once in a while. I have this really nice leather collar and leash that I'm like, just take me, daddy, and like show me what to do and pull me around. And I like when we get primal with each other and things like that. I love to be spanked, flogged, stuff, so that's like the kinks for me.
The longer like
they're like the
I was gonna go
pieces.
downstairs to our bedroom, like pull it out. I'm like, that's
show
what
you
it
our
is.
drawer. Yeah.
It's like part 2 of this podcast, going through our drawers and be like, okay, this is flogging.
Let me demonstrate. But it's so healing because these parts they're not only not shamed, but they are accepted and even celebrated. Yeah. And that is so healing. I will say, like, that's been one of the most healing parts of our erotic journey.
So connecting as well, right?
Yeah.
It's a whole new level of understanding and connection with one another that otherwise is hidden and secretive. And that draws...
And that disconnects
barriers.
you because there's this thing you have to hide. There were certain kinks that we hid from each other for the first 8 years of marriage because we thought that was too weird. Like, oh, he's going to think I'm a total weirdo. Like, and vice versa.
Gone through the same stuff.
And it's like only when we shed light, we were like, oh, wow, I really feel connected to that person because that person didn't judge me.
Every other aspect of the relationship, it builds so much more trust because of the vulnerability that you've gone through.
Yes. But also you have to be able to hold your own kink and not judge yourself for it.
Yes.
Because if you judge yourself for your own kink, you will judge the other person. Yeah. And that person's going to come out and it's like, I have a leash. And it's like, oh my God, weird. Yeah. I bet like some people watching this thought about you being weird because they
especially being like an empowered woman.
They're
like
not confident of embracing their
own kinks. They don't. They judge themselves for their own kinks.
They always bring it back to the self. How is this mirroring? My own stuff.
Because I'm like I haven't tried a leash, but like you talking about it, I was just like, oh, that's so hot. Like.
Next level of surrender. Just get like tied, like tied.
Well, to be fair, the sex shop that got Peanut's toy, the vibrator, right here, they did have like pretty cool leashes for dogs. So I feel like maybe that one right next to these toys.
Yes, you can get a nice custom made one.
The next episode.
How do you even start getting kinky? Because it might be overwhelming at the beginning.
Exploring.
And just taking it slow.
I would be curious as to advice for couples to even approach that if they haven't got there.
Because it might be scary.
Oh,
right?
It's totally scary. It's so vulnerable. And I've had so many people who have calls with me and we're exploring coaching or courses or whatever. And they're like, I've never told a soul about this. And I feel so weird and ashamed of it. And I feel like this is the first safe place that I have to even express this out loud. So, actually, one of the very practical resources that I would recommend is Kimmy Inch's. She has a kink checklist. And I'm like always doing free advertising for her because I love this woman. but she has this dialed in. Like she has this kink checklist. You can check it out, see if you're interested in giving it or receiving it or both, and then you can just have a frames about it.
Because there's like a top, bottom, and then there's the dominate.
There's like the dominate,
and
the
the
way I
dom
like
and
how she like frames this is like there's more of the leader and the follower, because to be in this dominant role is very serving. You know, there's such a deep care. This is what I love about her as a dominatrix is there is such a deep energetic awareness and presence and connection, and there's such a deep care about how she leads people in these scenes.
I love that it says lead, because there's this idea that the dominatrix is like, I'm here to pleasure myself through you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not like that.
Get off on like telling you what to do. And some people do that. And if as long as it's consensual, that's cool.
All how it's been built and the trust that's been built between two people, right? And where that line is and what comes before it and being comfortable in that situation.
Yeah. And the aftercare too. The aftercare after you do these things. That's
Which
something.
is, especially if it's in your relationship, something you should definitely discuss. Like, hey, so what's your aftercare?
Yeah, what do you need after?
Yeah.
And the doms.
Bye, and it's like,
Yeah, it's like, okay, bye. And you're just like, oh, I'm floating in subspace. So I'm so like out of it.
Yeah, I had a friend who just basically met a guy and he's like, I can show you
Shibari.
Shibari.
Yeah.
It was like a 3-hour Shibari.
Oh, I love
like,
Shibari so
and
much.
then he's like, okay, now you need to leave. And then right after, and she went home and she cried. And she's like, I felt abused because there was no aftercare.
You feel so unmet and uncared for. Oh, the aftercare is just, you gotta have it. And even in sex and vanilla sex, or like outside of, you know, like as vanilla as it can be, right? That is like, the aftercare, it's the connection. Yeah. And you can also increase your capacity for pleasure after you have had your orgasm or orgasms, and then just keep that connection.
I heard from my girlfriends that some guys were like, oh yeah, I don't sleep with anybody after like actual fall asleep, and I don't do aftercare. I'm like, well, so don't get involved, in a way, right? If you
if she really doesn't want that, or she can really do without it, then cool. But a lot
sometimes
of times
you don't know. Sometimes you might be like, oh, like it happened to me before when I was just like up for something casual, and it triggers something that I was like sobbing after an orgasm, and Jacob's like, it's okay, like okay,
you
we
didn't
just
even know you
opened
needed
something, right? So I could have been like, oh, it might be just a vanilla sex, and then it ended up with me having this profound like cleansing experience where I started crying, and he's just like, okay, container,
and then you feel so held. And so I had this moment last week where we just did our regular, like kind of like our vanilla sex. It's still not vanilla. We're still like too kinky for it to ever be vanilla. But it was just our routine thing. And it was just, the energy was different about it. And I sat up and I looked at him and I just was like we were just in this other dimension together, and we were so locked in, and I started sobbing, and then he was like licking the tears from my face, and I was like, I don't know what's happening.
So beautiful.
And I'm just letting it happen. And so, we do need that moment afterwards to just
and not being afraid of your emotion as well in those moments, to really connect with it and be comfortable that the other person you're with is going to receive it.
I also love that. I don't think I have to, try to convince anyone that your sex after 17 years of marriage can sound great, because I mean, just the vanilla sex of licking your tears off and just like being in another dimension. I'm like, okay, yeah, you sounds pretty good. And the leash the other day.
Exactly. And it's the foreplay throughout the day too. Like I love to be like, I can feel like this embodied jaguar energy. Like I'm like this, ferocious cat, but he has this presence about him with me that I feel like I love being the kitten around him. So I love it when he calls me that. So he calls me that, and it does things to my body, and I'm just like, and I feel the tingles, and I probably have a bunch of text messages from him right now. My phone's downstairs.
People are like, holy shit, I want to learn from this woman, which is basically what I thought when I came across your content. So where can we find you?
Well, I am on Instagram at Luci Lampe, on TikTok at Luci Lampe Official, and all of the current things and courses and offerings will be at lucilampe.com.
And so Jacob actually signed up without telling anybody.
Yes. Oh, he didn't even tell you. It's
No,
a surprise.
Well, after,
Maybe 5 minutes.
He's like,
after.
I did this.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really exciting. A 6-week container.
Yes,
For
yes.
embodying that wild masculine energy,
Yeah.
right? Which is really exciting. So Highly recommend.
Yeah, going into the dark masculine stuff. We're just getting started.
Just super cool.
Exciting.
I'm super excited for that.
So as
that
we,
stuff.
good luck. And I'm next. I'm next. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much, Lucy, for coming.
Thank you.